Okay. I've had like 2 or 3 people ask me to go through this video. I don't think I've ever done a video on the 10-minute Bible hour, but he's a really nice guy. What's his name? I don't know his name. We're completely shifting gears here. But I think he made this video because of Rhett and Link, and this is kind of a counter video to that, sort of, maybe. And so we'll take a listen and see what he has to say.
Hey everybody, my name's Matt. This is the 10-minute Bible Hour, and I want to do 2 things in this little video. One, I want to give you a very abbreviated version of the story of my spiritual deconstruction. How I went from being raised in a Christian home and being a Christian as a young person to having my faith fall apart completely in adulthood, and then what happened after that.
Yeah. The title of this is Christian to Atheist to Christian Again. Now, when you have your faith completely broken apart, I don't think that necessarily means that you're an atheist. I think a good way to tell if you're an atheist or not, and rather than just a backslidden Christian, if you're coming from the Christian worldview, Christian perspective, is you almost need to have a near-death experience. And then you ask yourself, did you think about God during that? Did you even think about praying at that point? And if the answer is no, tell you, you can get your atheist badge. You've earned it. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I was on Modern Day Debates channel a while back with a Jewish gentleman and Jonathan McClatchy, Christian. And I kind of had an opening statement type thing, and I made it into a short video. But I told the story of how a person ran a red light and hit me, and I saw it coming, and there was nothing I could do. I tried to speed up to get out of the way, but it was too late at that point. And boom, I got hit. My SUV was totaled. I was really shaken up. Their front end was totally smashed in. But their airbags went off, I think, and they got out, and they were all. But anyhow, the point is, during that whole time, when it happened and afterwards, like I had to be there for about an hour afterwards, and the paramedics came and everything. Not once did I think about God. Not once did I think about praying. Not once did I think about the big existential angst questions of life. And at that point, now looking back on that, I'm thinking, I really don't believe. I really, really don't. And I think a lot of Christians, like maybe this guy, says when they start to doubt and they call it their faith is falling apart, and they really don't even, they might even not even call themselves a Christian anymore, but that doesn't make you an atheist. My guess is there's still a part of you that believes in a higher power or something, but you just maybe think that Christianity is false at that point.
So I would super appreciate it if you would hang with me at least till the end of that part of the video, because the story has a lot of ups and downs, and where it lands is important to making sense of the whole story in general. Second thing I want to do is just talk about this concept of a testimony in general, the story that people tell about how they came to faith, or more recently, the story that people are telling about how they come away from faith.
Yeah, the story of coming to faith. What's his name? J. Warner Wallace had a video recently where he basically says he doesn't share his personal testimony. Now get this, J. Warner Wallace, that detective guy, says he doesn't share his personal testimony because it doesn't really matter in the big scope of things. It's whether Christianity is true or not. But he talks about the evidence for Christianity all the time from the point of view of a detective. But yet he says, I don't share my testimony, which tells you that his personal testimony of how he became a Christian has nothing or little to do with the evidence. That was a huge admission there.
A lot of prominent people in the last year or so have come out and made videos or podcasts to say, I used to be a Christian, but now I'm not, and here's why. And I think it's worth processing that through a little bit together as well. The quick version of my spiritual deconstruction.
So he's talking about Rhett and Link there, I'm quite sure of it.
My parents were awesome. Dad's a pastor. Mom and dad raised me around theology, philosophy, history, art. We did thought for fun growing up. We talked about books and movies and music and story, and I loved it. It was a blast to process all of this through. And in that context, the basics of the Christian gospel made sense. And I signed up for that both as a young kid, and then I kind of re-upped after I'd sort of done the Christianity.
Re-upped. That's another way of saying rededicated. Basically, I think there are many, if not most, Christians who have asked Jesus into their heart many times just to make sure.
101 basic questions kind of stuff when I was maybe about 15 years old. And I got a lot of applause for being a good Christian young man. I had a Christian job at the Christian bookstore in the mall across from Orange Julius. And I went to a Christian high school and I got an award there for being, I guess, a good Christian or whatnot. And then I guess I felt like I'd arrived. And I've solved all the questions, obviously. I did that when I was 15. It was easy enough to figure out an eternal God and the purpose of life, and questions of life, death, and other people. So I'm good to go on that, and I'm good to go on behavior. I don't do anything bad because I didn't want to disappoint people, and I wanted to keep impressing people and getting that applause. So that's a recipe for a pretty ugly build of faith to take out of childhood and into adulthood. And sure enough,
what did he said this was ugly?
Keep impressing people and getting that applause. So that's a recipe for a pretty ugly build of faith to take out of childhood and into adulthood. And sure enough.
But you were raised in sounds like a wonderful Christian home. Your dad was a pastor. Like how much better could it be? Like I sensing that you're saying that you got lazy and complacent maybe and didn't keep building your faith. But as far as your childhood and your environment around you, working for a Christian bookstore and having a Christian family and going to a Christian private school, or did you say private school? Christian school. It's like, what else could a parent ask for to raise their child in the ways of the Lord?
I crashed against the rocks and the wheels did fall off. I mean, it's a terrible way to approach life. I mean, you miss out on learning and growth because you already know everything. And your quest is now to get everybody else on board with the things that 15-year-old you figured out. And so I would like to think that there were likable things about me. And I certainly had friends, patient friends. But I would also have to admit that there were some things about that build of my faith that really were very problematic. Went through a difficult time in a church setting. I used to kind of think this was everybody else's fault.
My guess is this is between the ages of 18 and 22, go through a difficult time.
Eventually I came to see that I had a part in what went wrong there. And with no blame toward anybody, the whole thing just broke. The Bible didn't make sense anymore. The Christianity 101 answers that I had kept with me since I was 15 could no longer bear the weight of the questions I couldn't help but ask now. I'd heard new perspectives and ideas, and there's only so much you can block that stuff out, and then you endure.
Re-upped is military slang for re-enlisted. Okay.
Work crisis, relational crises, and well, I was, I guess, about 29. Here I am finding myself with a moving van driving away from my old job at this church where stuff got weird, and my beautiful young wife and my beautiful daughter, who's only a few weeks old, my first kid, is back there in the car seat, and here I am in a U-Haul, and we're driving to nowhere. We have no plan. We have no job. I'm not going to go work at another.
So it sounds like he was married and did some of this bad stuff in the church. See, like I can defend the Christians here listening. It sounds like he was hurt by people in the church and his faith fell apart. Now, he didn't go into detail what exactly happened in the church. He didn't say whether it was like he and some other people bearing down on the evidence for Jesus Christ and him because of that negative experience with his doubts or something. Maybe that's what happened, but either Christianity is true or it's not. Like what changed about the evidence during this time for you? Maybe it was just because you were expecting people to treat you a certain way and they didn't treat you this way, and you just left Christianity because your feelings were hurt.
Church and just lost. I started crying, like ugly crying.
Ugly crying. I know exactly what he's talking about here. I remember between the ages 18 and 22, this is where you do your ugly crying. where you feel like you need Jesus, and your life has been a mess, and you've disappointed the God you worship and serve, and you need help, and it's like you're sitting in a pew in church, and you're just like snorting like a pig and like a dog, and you got tissues all over the place, and if not, it's dripping on the floor. I've been there.
Partly because I felt like this is the time I need to have things together for them back there, but also because I didn't want there to not be a God, but I really felt there was no God. I didn't want to not be a Christian. Of course I wanted to be a Christian. I didn't want all the stuff that the Bible promises about the point of existence and where all of this is headed to be fake. I wanted that to be real. But for all the things that I would critique myself over, one thing that I can maybe say that I got right in all this time was honesty. I didn't lie to myself about faith. I've tried to make that a habit since that point. I don't think it's a good thing to lie to yourself about. And that meant that in that moment, I didn't have a faith anymore.
Yeah, that's great advice. No, there's no need to lie to yourself. Like if you say I know, and know is a strong word. There's a difference between saying I believe versus I know. But if you're a Christian, you say I know, and then fill in the blank. There's a good time to ask yourself, am I lying to myself here? Do I really know this? Or do I think I know this? Like I reserve the word know most of the time for things like gravity pulling things down, or even my own existence, or I don't know. I try not to be unreasonable with the word know, but still there's a big difference in saying stuff, I know what created the universe or our universe, versus I believe my God did this, but I don't know he did. That's, I think, a point of where a lot of Christians need to be honest with themselves and say, do you really know? Do you? Or as Peter Boghossian says, are you pretending to know?
And this little four-wheeled metaphorical vehicle, this build that my faith had been that I'd had around since 15, everything was taken apart. Not just the wheels falling off, the panels are off, everything's off. And it's spread out on this metaphorical workbench with all the parts and pieces of what used to be a cohesive faith just shot. And even on that drive in my brain, I was trying to reassemble it and make sense of things, and I just couldn't. And I kept coming to the conclusion, it's fake, and this hurts deeply. For the next, I don't even know how long, period of weeks and months, whatever, I processed this out more, and I guess I got to a place where I thought I've got a lot in this. It would be worth my time to...
Yeah, that's a key point. I got a lot in this. There comes a point where you've invested so much of your life in a belief system, especially if you're married to a Christian, your whole family is a Christian. He just described, he couldn't make sense of it. Everything fell apart. But then he thought, but you know what? I got so much invested in this. Maybe I should take another look.
At least try to read the Bible again. Maybe it'll look different with all the parts taken apart and laying here on the table, and then maybe I'll understand things I didn't understand before. Maybe I just need to do that and owe it to Christianity or myself before I maybe feel the impulse to let my wife know where I'm at.
Yeah. My guess is your wife already suspected something was up. But if you were to make it final, or at least declare it with your lips that, hey, I'm no longer a Christian, it would have devastated your wife. So that's part of the investment, right? You've invested in her life. And so this compelled you to take another look and try to confirm what you used to believe. I think this happens over and over with a lot of people.
So I started reading the thing again, and it was amazing how quickly, now that those presuppositions were...
How quickly?
Taken apart. It was amazing how quickly this thing came back together.
If it came back together quickly, odds are there's something else going on here. Even Lee Strobel took 2 years, so I don't know what you mean by quickly. But my guess is what you were saying, that you had this, as Reed Nicewonder's saying in the live stream chat, you had this sunk cost. You had so much invested. You didn't want to hurt your wife. And what do you know? Things came back quickly for you. If you imagine a Mormon talking like this, as a Christian, you can see it clear as a bell. Oh, yeah. Mormonism, it started to come back together very quickly once I realized and gave it a second chance, even though it was all in pieces just days, months before.
Very quickly I could tell, oh, well, I had a false assumption here. My false assumption was that I'm the main character of the document, that humans are the point, but we're not. God is clearly the main character of the document.
What in the world? I was assuming that if you... Can someone tell me what this guy's first name is? I don't know his first name, but I was under the impression that Christianity fell apart for you because you didn't believe the core propositions were true. I don't think it was just because someone hurt your feelings, right? So how does the core propositions change? Because you're starting from a point of, oh, this Bible is not written for me. It was written for God or something like that. You're still, you've jumped a step here. Number one, that a God exists. And number two, that this Bible has anything to do with a God if it does exist.
Whoa, that changes everything. It's not like that just clicked. I gotta run everything through this new set of lenses, this new matrix. How does that work?
Yeah, I got to run everything through a new lens. Imagine not being a Mormon and then putting on the Mormon glasses and then reading the Book of Mormon. I tell you, everything's going to start making sense then if you could truly just find a set of Mormon glasses and put them on nice and snug and then read the Book of Mormon. I tell you, everything will fall into place.
And then I read a little more. I'm like, you know what? The plot of the Bible then can't be the improvement of people's behavior and the increased accuracy of people's thinking about God. It's got to be the story of God redeeming things that are broken and messed up, people, creation, everything. Whoa! That's a completely different religion. And what's insane is that
it's a completely different religion, maybe, compared to what you believed before, but that still doesn't mean that completely different religion is true, right?
In that moment, I was an atheist, and I think I'm still an atheist toward that fake version of God that I...
Oh, this is really interesting to me because, you know the saying that, what's his name, the comedian, he always says, I just believe in one less God than you. Like, how many gods do you believe in? One. Well, as an atheist, I just believe in one less God than you. And a lot of Christians push back on that. No. That's ridiculous. It's you're either an atheist or you're a theist. But this guy is saying, no, you can be an atheist towards one God, but not another. You can be a theistic towards one God and an atheist in terms or in respect to a different God. So it's good to see a Christian admit this.
I thought only cared about people and that was subservient to people. But I am not an atheist anymore to the idea of a God that made everything and is the first cause of everything and is the God behind the Bible.
Yes, Ricky Gervais, thank you.
Itself. They're different deities. And if you play the game all the way out, it plays out in very different ways. In that moment, sitting there with everything taken apart metaphorically on the table, Christianity had broken for me, and I no longer believed that religion worked. The funny thing is,
what does worked have anything to do with it? I think most Christians would say, it doesn't matter if it works or not. The question is whether it's true, right?
I still no longer believe that version of the religion works. There are problems and flaws, unsurprisingly, with my 15-year-old build, my 15-year-old prototype of a religion that purports to be a relationship, an interaction between finite people and an infinite God. It's going to be more complicated than what I can come up with as a 15-year-old. This shouldn't surprise me. But the version of Christianity that is age-old and encapsulated in the biblical text and that resonates with reason in my brain, I'm not rejecting that.
Resonates with reason in his brain. This is... I don't know what to say about this. It's like the only thing I could say is just imagine a Muslim saying something similar. It's not, I had this idea about Islam and I realized that was like the 15-year-old me thinking what Islam really is. But now I understand the true Islam. And it's just amazing and it makes sense. It resonates with my brain.
That to me makes a lot of sense. Maybe this is getting confusing in terms of language. Bottom line, was raised around Christianity. I was very proud in that. I had a version of it that I built when I was 15. That went for a ways into adulthood. I refused to grow and it broke. It's not anybody else's fault. It's my own fault. But somehow I guess I would say because of God, the thing got put back together.
Because of God, the thing got put back together. There's a lot of Christians who accuse non-Christians, atheists, non-believers, that, what's your picture of God? Your picture of God's wrong. And so therefore, I don't believe in that God either. You'll hear this said a lot. I could say, okay, you envision any version of God you want. I wouldn't go that far. But similar evidence that we have, you can use the philosophical arguments all you want. You can interpret the Bible all you want. But you think of the best version of your God. And odds are, I still don't believe it. I don't believe that version. So it's not like I'm making up a straw man version of Yahweh or a straw man version of Jesus. You can put it in the best possible light you want. And odds are, I'm not probably going to believe it if we still have the same evidence for it.
And it looks very, very different. I don't know which build I'm on, like 75.2 now, because I keep taking it apart and putting it back together because now it's just fun to work on it all the time.
Yeah, see, this is why he'll probably always stay in Christianity. It seems like he has fun with the deconstructing and reconstructing. It's like he likes Lego. This guy likes building things and tearing them apart. And so for him, this whole struggle with Christianity is a bit of an enjoyment. And my guess is he'll always be a Christian, no matter what the evidence.
But certainly at this point, I would say, yeah, I'm a Christian. And I'm really glad I didn't go out and announce that to everybody because I was still very much in process on this. And there are still all kinds of times, including moments where I've worked at church and moments where I've been making videos talking about this stuff with you, where I'm like, I don't know. If I'm to be totally truthful, I got all the parts spread out here on the workbench again right now.
Oh, wow. He's admitting that he has made YouTube videos as a Christian YouTuber while having serious doubts whether Christianity is true.
And this is going to take a few weeks because my processor isn't fast enough to just do this in an instant. But all of this taking apart and putting back together since has happened in the context of Christian faith. And I would like to think, being honest with myself, so I don't lie to myself to just believe something to make myself feel better. Makes for a weird, clumsy, clunky, uncomfortable version of Christianity, but it feels like I'm telling myself the truth. Maybe I'm not right about everything, but I'm not intentionally lying to myself. That's what I mean. And that's what I'm striving to do moving forward. And
there is a option of just saying, maybe Christianity is true, maybe it's false, I don't know. And then just go out and live your life. But he admitted he enjoys the construction and the deconstruction of it all and building things up. And so I guess if this gives him meaning and purpose, just hashing this stuff in his head, then I guess go ahead.
I wish I had listened when no doubt wise people sat me down somewhere along the way as a kid and were like, hey, you're doing great in terms of where you're at right now. You're asking the questions you can ask. You're thinking through what you can think through. This is going to get weird down the road, though. You're going to ask new questions later and more questions after that. And this really is a lifelong adventure that you're going to go through of exploring the final frontier, the depths of the human soul and eternity and God and life and death and people and everything that matters. You are about to embark on this, young man. So get ready for a crazy, interesting, fascinating ride. This will be the most interesting project of your life. I'm sure people told me that, but I was too proud to listen. I'm glad eventually I at least started to internalize some of that a little further down the road. That gets me to the whole thing about testimonies. Here I stand with faith, and anti-testimonies. Now I stand over here.
Anti-testimonies? No, it's just still a testimony, just in the opposite.
The whole anti-testimony fad, I get it. Yeah, there's
fad.
Some of that impulse is no doubt motivated by culture.
Is it a fad when Christians give their testimony? If not, then why is it a fad when non-Christians give their testimony of how they left Christianity?
Cultural pressures. It used to be very easy to be a Christian. You scored a lot of points by doing that. Now it's a little bit harder and you don't score a lot of points by being a Christian, except in some Christian circles. So I think There's more to be gained by identifying with what right now is the easier track, and that is the be skeptical of religious claims, particularly Christian claims, particularly evangelical Christian.
Is it still not 65% of the United States professing Christians? Is it still not the vast majority of politicians still Christian? Is the whole flavor, isn't there still stores closed in small towns on Sundays because of Christianity? What's he talking about? I guess if you live in LA, where does this guy live? Then maybe I can see it. Or if Silicon Valley, then being a Christian is like a taboo.
Christian claims. But I think it's more complex than that as to why people make anti-testimonies right now. One reason I think it happens is because, well, the same reason anybody gives a testimony for anything is to say, here I stand. I am taking the flag of myself and I am planting it right here. Yep, I'm a Christian. This is how I got here. Now you know who you're dealing with. This is what I'm about.
Yeah, and I take my flag and I plant it and I say, yes, I'm under the power of Satan and my goal is to lead the youth to hell.
Well, I guess it's understandable that if somebody had that flag planted there and they really wanted to say, well, that's not who I am anymore and I want people to know who they're dealing with, now I plant my flag over here. Okay, I think that's one point of testimonies. I think another point of testimonies, both testimonies traditionally and anti-testimonies, is that we want solidarity. We want to encourage other people who've gone through a similar process. That's why you tell a testimony in church. And I think that's why people tell anti-testimonies on the internet right now. Additionally, a third reason that we tell testimonies is to persuade. If I plant my flag over here and say, I think Christianity is true and there's life in it and there's a God behind it, what I'm implicitly or explicitly saying is, and I think this would be true for you as well, and I hope you'll think about it, and I'd like to have you join me in this. That's the one place where I feel like the anti-testimonies maybe aren't totally honest.
Whoa. So saying people who like Rhett and Link are not totally honest. Okay, what are they not totally honest about?
They don't usually come out and say, follow me. But come on, it's a testimony. They want you to follow them.
Oh my goodness. Oh, he thinks Rhett and Link are like deceivers from Satan, and just saying, we don't know. What does Rhett say? We're hopeful agnostics or something like that. And this guy is saying, no, you need to come. If Rhett was totally honest, he would say, and all you Christians out there, be like me. This is by the way, what this guy just said is part of the reason why I say what I say when I say I am under the power of Satan and my goal is to lead the youth to hell. I say that because I know how these guys think, and he's saying it right here. He's like, well, if you were honest, you would say, follow me, do what I did, and leave Christianity. See, they can't say that about me because I'm telling them, like, I'm leading your children to hell. Would you like to talk?
It's not just, I feel disingenuous if I don't tell you this right now. It's not just, hey, I want other people who've experienced what I've experienced to feel solidarity. It's, look, I've laid the whole thing out. I just explained to you why Christianity makes no sense. In my deconstruction story, you'll now need to come with me over here to not faith, or I guess just be irrational. And so...
What? See, this again, oh man, I'm loving this as it's going along here. Let me...
do that story because I want to plant a flag and say, this is who I am, this is how I got there. I want to tell you that story because I think there are a whole bunch of youth group kids like me who got raised around Christianity and some of it was weird and some of it was good. And you're trying to untangle this whole thing in your brain as an adult too. So there's a solidarity aspect, but I'm also telling you this because I want you to do the eyes wide open faith thing with me.
Yeah, no, he said the word irrational, right? I tell you, the insecurities of Christians boggles my mind. Here we go.
Story, you'll now need to come with me over here to not faith, or I guess just be irrational.
Yes. See, I don't think, okay, my guess is he's talking about guys like Rhett and Link. And so when he says, you'll need to come with me, the non-Christians, giving their testimony, come with me, says Rhett, over here to not faith, says Rhett and Link, or I guess just be irrational and stay where you are. This is what this guy's saying. But I don't think Rhett and Link has ever said something like that. This is the Christian projecting what they are feeling. And I see this so often. I even saw David Wood do this with his debate with Matt Dillahunty. You, as an atheist, if you're the type who has anger issues and you love to call Christians stupid, you don't have to. I would say the majority of them already feel it. And I think this guy's feeling it by saying what he's just said here.
Over here to not faith, or I guess just be irrational. And so I'm not saying it's wrong for somebody to want to persuade you to what
they know that what they believe is silliness and foolishness. Christians realize this. You don't have to tell them, because their own scriptures tells them the gospel is foolishness to all those who are perishing. That's what makes, as Rhett said so eloquently, this is what makes Christianity cohesive and flourish, is a bunch of people believing in crazy stuff together. Do you believe this crazy stuff? Yeah, I believe that crazy stuff. Oh, we can be friends. Because all those other people don't. This is why there's flat earthers. They have these organizations and communities and small groups where they get into their dirty basements and talk about flat earth.
They think, I'm trying to persuade you. Are you kidding me? I didn't just tell you that story for my health. And I told you that story because I want to plant a flag and say, this is who I am, this is how I got there. I want to tell you that story because I think there are a whole bunch of youth group kids like me who got raised around Christianity, and some of it was weird and some of it was good. And you're trying to untangle this whole thing in your brain as an adult too. So there's a solidarity aspect, but I'm also telling you this because I want you to do the eyes wide open faith thing with me. I want company. I want other people who are willing to take it all apart and put it all back together, and take it all apart and put it all back together, and not get weird and freaked out that other people might see it different, or that you're touching on something that's a little too sacred. It's just, if there's a God behind it, we should be able to think about it. So
yes, this I agree with.
Yes, I'm trying to persuade you to do that with me. I want to make videos where we do that together. I want to kick it around together. I don't reply to all the comments or even most of them, but I read all.
But here's the thing. Here's the trick. If you're trying to figure out what's more likely true than false, and you want to take things apart and put it back together, and take it apart and put it back together, I think a great way to lower bias is to not care. So when you come from the point of view, I have sunk so much into Christianity. My wife would cry for months if I left it. Or if my family will disown me if I leave Christianity. If you come from that point of view, good luck. How can you be objective at that point? If you want to squash your biases to the ground, you almost have to become a robot. And imagine yourself flying in from another planet, looking the evidence for what it is, and saying, I don't care if Jesus died for my sins. I don't care. Let me just look at the evidence. He might have, but maybe he didn't. Maybe he's God in flesh, maybe he isn't. Let's just look at the evidence together. If you come from that point of view, yeah, then you can start to lower your bias.
A lot of them, because I want to hear what you think, and I really do care what you think about it. I care about your process in this. So yes, I'm trying to persuade, but so are the anti-testimony people. And what they want you to do is reject it.
Look, I barely know Rhett and Link. I did a couple of videos, and I admitted in my first video with them, I didn't know who they were. I don't see them trying to persuade people. Again, I'm assuming he's talking about Rhett and Link here. I could be wrong. But assuming I am wrong, and he's talking about just people who leave the faith in general, I think there are very few people like me who start a YouTube channel and say, hey, everybody, I left Christianity, follow me and do the same. I don't even say that. Well, I joke about being under the power of Satan and so forth, but I've told people, stay in Christianity. Like, I wonder if this guy could say that. Stay an atheist. Christians can't do that. I don't think so. Well, they could, but they'd be sinning in their worldview.
They want you to paint yourself into a corner with them and say,
what? Paint yourself in a corner with them by becoming a non-Christian?
Hey, this is now where the things are, and this is where I stand. And look, if you want to be there, they want to be there. Who am I? What kind of hypocrite would I be to say, you can't not believe? Well, what about me? I didn't believe. And I'd already gone to seminary. I mean, for crying out loud, you got to cut people some slack and acknowledge that there's some ups and downs to this.
He went to seminary? Oh, that's why he's doubts.
If you want to not believe, yeah, I like you. You can do that. If they want to, I like them. They can do that. But let's be upfront about what a testimony is for. It's to persuade. And
there's many times where I've tried to drag testimonies out of people and they don't want to give it. So if a testimony is in response to a question, how old were you when you became a Christian? 15. Have you persuaded me with that answer? Giving your testimony of the date? Well, how did you become a Christian? Oh, it was at summer camp. Oh, no, that's not persuading. That's just giving the facts of how you became a Christian.
I think that the offer to eyes wide open faith and not painting ourselves into some corner, I think it's a better offer. I think it's a better invitation. And so whether you are someone who would say, I lean toward there's maybe nothing and I don't actually think there's a God behind it, but I like the exercise and I like thinking, or whether you're somebody who's
Yeah, I think he just described Rhett and Link there.
raised like I am and you're like, nope, I'm in, I'm pretty sure, and you're in that phase, either way or anything in between, let's process this stuff together. And to those who are in a place where they've done their processing, they don't want to do any more, and they're ready to plant that flag in the ground and say, I'm done and I'm out and I want you to come with me, grace and peace to you as well, my friends.
Oh, he kind of did what I suggested. Although he didn't come out and say, hey, if you're an atheist, just stay there. But well, maybe he did.
But I am not done and I am not out. And I want to continue down this road some more. And I would love it if you would hang out with me while I do it.
Wow. Is he hinting that he's still on the edge here? That he's like, he doesn't sound like 100% committed Christian with that last statement. It sounds like he's like sitting right on that fence, and depending on which way the wind blows that day, he'll either fall into the non-Christian camp or the Christian camp. But maybe just because he enjoys the deconstructing and constructing, he'll always be on that fence teetering. Should a Hindu testimony persuade anyone? Yeah, see, that I think Christianity is unique in a lot of ways, where there's other religions who evangelize, but Christianity is the big one where it's commanded. It's one of the main commands after Jesus apparently ascended, is go and make disciples and preach the word to all nations, the gospel. Anybody figure out what the name of this guy is? What's his name? 10-minute Bible hour.
When I was a kid, my teacher...
Doesn't say. Oh, here it is. Matt Whitmann. There it is. If Rhett and Link are no longer in the faith and they're both rational, then being in the faith is irrational, but someone could be rational and mistaken. Yes, you can be rational and mistaken, definitely. But like Matt tipped his hand there when he, was talking about you're either out of the faith or irrational. And I've noticed that more and more, that self-view that Christians have. Like, you don't have to tell them. This whole idea of those mean atheists beating up on Christians, making them feel bad or whatever, or stupid, I would say a lot of that is on them. Do you get the feeling he's really trying to treat on the I used to be an atheist apologetic? Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't really bother me too much if people want to say, hey, listen to me because I used to be an atheist. They either will have cogent things to say or not. Because I say, hey, I used to be a Christian. And I'm sure it rubs Christians the wrong way, especially the Calvinists. In fact, like, You Christians out there, I was a better Christian than you. I was a more sincere Christian than you. I was a more knowledgeable Christian than you. You Christians out there, you have nothing on the Christian I used to be. And you know what? I left it. Like, can you imagine how that makes Christians feel? They hate that. A lot of them. I was more true Christian than any of those flag-waving Christians out there. So you should listen to me because I know everything there is to know about Christianity. So I can kind of get it. I can kind of get it how why Christians today say, I used to be an atheist. In fact, I hated God so much. I hated the idea of God that doesn't exist so much. I'm still an atheist, but listen to me. My advice, if you're an atheist talking to a Christian about Christianity, don't give your opinion. Don't make any claims. Just quote other Christians. Get a list of main things that your Christian friend talks about, and then find a Christian who says something that pushes against it. A Christian that they hopefully respect. Because they're not going to listen to you. Unless they really respect you for other reasons. Like how well you bowl. He bowls 230 average? Man, I got to hear what he has to say about Christianity. Whitman. Yeah, I think of Family Guy, say Whitman. Cool Whip. Yeah, I did compare Christianity to Flat Earth. Oh, Camille is on, I think right now maybe. Camille Greger, the guy is sometimes on my channel, on Myth Vision podcast. It's either on now or just started or will start soon, so go check it out. Have a great day, guys. Poof. I might separate this Matt Whitman stuff from the finance stuff later. Take care. Stay safe.